Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Monday, November 11th. We're going to take a look at DraftKings today. So, it's been a while since we looked at DraftKings, several months ago. If you go back and look at my last DraftKings video, I talked about it having strength over 40, and that's sort of back where we are again. You know, it does have this tendency to kind of get up into this $40 range and then have some really big motions, and it's sort of doing that at the moment, right? Just sort of flying through that level. Now, it has previously always given that level up, and quite significantly, usually, but you know, it's just interesting to see it once again sort of flying through that level pretty strongly. So I wanted to see where it was. A bunch of these levels are still holding up really strong, so I feel good about it. There is sort of a level right around where my cursor was. I'm going to add it in here. I don't want to clutter the chart too much, but there's this wick. You see the wick on this candle here, right? And all the previous topping out here, topping out there, and then it wicked through the top on that, and now it's getting mighty close to that level, 43.56. Today, it topped out with a high of 43.33. So that would be the next sort of really strong level, right? That's where it had a hard time holding last time that it tried to push up through. It got very close to that 44.79 level, but ultimately on this one day, it bled back down through, and that's then when it dropped all the way down here toward the mid 30s. So we'll see if it's able to make it through that price zone this time around. We'll see. I don't know if tomorrow will be the day or what have you, but it's been quite a move. Now, beyond that, like I said, 44.79, we could add a level in here if we wanted. There's a bunch of previous topping out right around here. I mean, I say a bunch, it's not that much price action. Yeah, that's probably about where I'd put it, up above that 44.79. I'd say 45.62. I'm sorry this chart gets cluttered very quickly. There's just so much that happens sort of repeatedly in here, right? You see this top, 46.39. So the next sort of dollar value levels that I see, we talked about 43.56. That's the nearest in resistance. 44.79, 45.62, 46.39, and then 47.68. Now, I'm not going to clutter it above there, but we do have some levels above, just in case we don't come back and take a look at this puppy for a little while. 50.75, 55.87, if it does get way up there, and then there is an additional level, I think, 64.52. So certainly there's a lot of levels in between those, right? Those are huge percentage changes in between those levels, but it does sort of give you a concept of where it could sort of reach for if it does continue to push higher and higher. Now, counter to that, what could we see on the flip side? If it does start to come down, the first level of support that I'd look for it to get would be 42.29. You know, if it's going to have just a little bit of a pullback and continue on its merry way, you know, that could be a good zone for it to look at, right? Establish a swing bottom at this most recent swing top would be potentially a good sign for the bulls. Below that, 40.43, 38.75, 36.44, 35.24, so on and so forth. But yeah, we'll see how hard and heavy it wants to swing here and how it wants to hold any of those levels. Now, it's stretched quite far above the EMAs at the moment, but we do now have full bullish formation on all of the EMAs. So top down here, the 8 EMA, it's moved quite far off of that at the moment. Right now situated at 39.06, so it's going to drag that up quite strongly if it keeps moving. The 21, there's that peach color, the 34, and then the 183, which I tend to consider sort of the longer term, like the position type level, you know, holding strong there in the sort of mid to upper 30s at the moment. So all of these will continue to get dragged along, but they have pretty freshly crossed over. That said, it's pretty heavily extended above the EMAs, so we'll see, you know, if or what type of a role that plays in the days and weeks ahead. Now, flipping over here to the Think or Swim study, we have sort of an interesting look here, and a couple of things happening. we have this relatively recent trigger and fire that just started to play out, right? You had this one blip trigger in there as well, and then it just started to fly. We see now in the phase oscillator it moving into bullish phase and extending through that level at the moment, extending, I guess it's around, it's in the 70s at the moment, I think. But if you look here in these ATR levels, right, it got that, you see this trigger here in the TTM squeeze indicator, it got that trigger right over the call indicator, the call level on the ATR levels. And when that happened and it fired, that's when it moved right through all of the levels. So these levels on the setup that I have last for the whole month of November. So as it currently stands, it has pushed above the call trigger through all of the ATR levels that are on the chart for the month of November, and sort of topped out at resistance at that level at the moment, that being 43.23. I think we spoke about today's high being 43.33, if I'm remembering correctly. And it is at the moment, you know, establishing price action above this channel, right? So it's sort of pushed off of it, using it as support today, which there's nothing wrong with that. And it could have quite significant price action above and out of this price channel for sure. So the one thing that I always just watch for is when it gets out of the channel, whether it's above or below the channel, right? We could take this for an example when it dropped out below the channel, right? Look for it to sooner than later re-engage with the channel. And this channel remains, I know it's hard to tell because it's kind of steady state for DraftKings, but for the period that we're looking at here, this channel is relatively, like relative to a lot of other stocks we look at, relatively wide, right? So it's covering a lot of ground. Like the top of this channel right now is at about 40, say close to 41, and the bottom here is all the way down close to 35. So percentage wise, that's a huge spread for the price to be able to operate in that range and still be within the channel. So the channel is just wide, indicating like the constant flux and volatility of DraftKings. And so that's another reason why typically when it's leaving the channel, we look for it to re-engage with the channel and re-enter relatively quickly, right? Because the channel is so wide and it's covering so much ground, it's taking up so much space on the chart, essentially. We may see DraftKings re-enter the channel sooner than later. That said, if the move is based off of, well, I guess for one thing, like real legitimate strong catalysts, right? That could be a sustained effort out and above the channel. The other possibility just in the modern day and age is just the sort of meme potential of it, right? The ability for just traders to get behind it, retail to get behind it, and just continue buying it out and above where the RSI is maxed out, where the phase oscillators sort of overextended, where the ATR levels have been pushed through, you know, and it's extended far out of the channel, far above the EMAs, you know, that can certainly happen. So I wouldn't discount that possibility. But it will be interesting to see if and when it does come down to re-engage with the channel here, if it does enter back in and find some support around this blue mid-range of the channel, or if it comes down and hits the upper bound of the channel and does push off of it again and uses it as support and just carries on its merry way up and above the channel, sort of indicating further bullish momentum that needs to sort of play out or exhaust before it's going to re-engage with the channel more fully. So we'll see. You know, eventually it'll go through some sort of compression period like we saw recently here, right? The whole month of October was basically in compression phase. So not surprising that spending a month in compression with then a decent amount of time triggering on the TTM squeeze indicator then gives it the sort of oomph, if you will, gives it the possibility for this really big push that we've seen recently. Now the question is just going to be, again, how long does that play out and how high does it climb? And like I said, could be for real sort of fundamental catalyst purposes, could be just sort of the meme quality of the day and age that we live in. But you know, whether it drops little or it drops far, whether it climbs a little, climbs really far, we have a lot of levels on the chart here, and so we have a lot that is mapped out already. I'll pull these back in so you can kind of see the spread all the way up to 64 there again. But yeah, go back and pause it if you want to sort of capture those levels. Like I said, I'm sorry, it gets a little bit cluttered, but you know, it being sort of this volatile when it does start to move, I'm reluctant to take out too many of these levels just to make it sort of clear up a little bit, if you will, because we might sort of churn through them sooner than later as the price moves. So we'll see, but yeah, I'm glad we have sort of ground covered from basically 30 into the 60s for this one, with a ton of action sort of situated in the mid 30s up to the mid 40s, because that's sort of, you know, the bulk of where we are at the moment. So in any case, I guess happy Monday, happy Veterans Day if you're here in the US, and I hope your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.